guys, it's Nik the Booksmith. Welcome back, welcome back. All right, shall we continue with the mystery box? For the top of the box, I thought it needed something. So I just cut out a piece of the pattern cardstock. Again, this is just some of my leftover Tim Holtz stuff. And I put some tape on the back of it. Yes, I have one. I'm doing a Michael Jackson thing, I guess. So there's the top and what perhaps will be going inside, what should go inside. Those of you who have been around for a minute will know how much of a sucker I am for specimen slides, specimen ephemera, just across the board. So I thought, well, maybe some specimen boxes with slide lids or something. Normally I would break out some file folders or mat board. However, the Elegoo company recently contacted me and were kind enough to send a Mars 3 Pro 3D resin printer for me to review. Of course, I've never used a 3D printer before, so I had no idea what to expect. The learning curve is quite steep, not gonna lie. But once I got the concept down, it wasn't intimidating at all. Because I am nowhere near an expert at any of this, I think I should leave the safety, the how-tos, all that kind of stuff to the folks that actually know what they're doing. If you're curious about 3D resin printing, you know, the ins, the outs, if you ever decide to get yourself a 3D printer, I'm going to list underneath this video some links to the people on YouTube that put out content that helped me immeasurably. I will say also that there are a ton of free resources for 3D printing online. Websites like Printables, Thingiverse, Cults 3D, they have literally hundreds of thousands of free or low-cost files of different models that can be printed. I took full advantage of these free files, especially when I first got the 3D printer and I was trying to figure everything out. Then I worked up the courage to make some of my own files to print. The cool thing about 3D printing is that the software that you use, either if you want to build your own models or the software that you use to prepare the models so that you can print them, most of that is also free. Okay, so the specimen boxes. Let me show you some examples that I have finished. They have little windows in them and of course specimen labels that go on the outside. Each of them has a specimen on the inside and the door slides open so those can be swapped out at your leisure. So let me show you what they look like when they are printed. So after they come out of the resin printer, I printed in two different pieces, of course, so that I can slide them together. Let me zoom in a little bit. I did some sanding on them just with some sandpaper because a lot of times when you are printing with a 3D printer, your model has to be supported by it's like scaffolding almost. And it just helps you to get the best print possible. After you remove the scaffolding and you rinse off your 3D models, then they go into a UV curing machine. Or if you have a lot of sunshine, you can set them outside for a while. You can even use the little UV lamps for when people do like the UV gel on their nails. You know, the little nail thing. It's a lamp. It's a UV lamp for nails, right? I don't know why I'm making it so complicated, but anything like that will cure the resin. And then after that's finished, then I can sand any rough edges left from the scaffolding and that kind of thing. So I built these in 3D Builder. So on the underside of the lid, there's this little indentation, like a little ridge, and that is for the window. And I created it so that a 1-inch square of acetate or whatever would fit in there. I don't have glass, so I just used packaging from, I don't even know what it was from. It's just acetate from packaging. And so this fits just right inside that little indentation in the lid. And I can either super glue that in or whatever, but first I need to do something else. As you can see with the specimen boxes that I've already finished, they have a painted technique on them. So what it is that I did was I simply took some black acrylic paint and I just gave it a quick coat of acrylic paint. Could have been any color. These could have been green or rusty brown or blue. I mean, anything you want. They actually take spray paint really, really well. I would have spray painted these black. However, I don't have any flat black paint. This acrylic paint is matte and it dries nice and flat, so it's kind of what I wanted to do. And I don't need to do the bottom at all because it's not going to show. Then after this black paint was dry, I took a dry brush and some white paint and I just tapped a little tiny bit on the end of my brush, and then I brushed most of it off on a paper towel, and then I dry brushed the white over the top of the black, make it look a little weathered so that it wasn't this perfect black container. And I did that to the lids as well. And I did 3 of these ahead of time because you didn't need to sit here and watch me dry brush for an hour. So while that black one is drying, I can set the windows inside of these little lids, because you definitely want to paint them before you set the window in. You'll hate yourself if you try to do it the other way around. I promise. I think I'm just going to use some super glue. Just a couple of tiny little dots at the corners. You certainly do not need much at all. So I will set this kind of aside and I'll put this glue stick on top of it to hold it down while the glue is drying. You can use a toothpick to move the super glue around if you get too much in one spot or something. But the acetate actually dries, super glue dries fairly quickly on the acetate. It doesn't take a very long time. And while these are getting dry, which they probably are already, I went ahead and I cut some little fabric squares that fit in the bottom. Nothing special whatsoever. It's just a beige, it's like a muslin of some kind. And it actually will stick down with PVA glue. Super easy squeezy. I don't know why I chose fabric. I could have put paper down here. I don't think it would have mattered. But I don't know, just decided on fabric. Maybe I thought because the extra texture would make it look a little bit more interesting or something. As far as these 3 specimens, I have this tiny little spotted grouse feather. So I'll just kind of center it in there. I also have, these are from a pine cone, you know, like the little layers on a pine cone. I don't know what they're called. They're called something. I don't know what it is though. There were pine cones in my backyard. I know what kind of pine. And this is a dried coreopsis flower from the front yard. Okay, there's that. I will let those dry. This is just a little bit of off-white paint that I have sitting here. I'll rub most of it off. And there's our final window. Well, that is doing its thing. These should be all finished, and they are. And these slide in like that. I printed out some tiny, tiny, tiny little stickers. Voila! These tiny little stickers can get placed on the boxes. I just have to remember which Latin name goes with what. I think I'm just going to use PVA. I think that will work just fine. But what if you don't have a 3D printer and you want to make those little specimen boxes? Well, you can use cardstock or mat board, whatever. I cut out squares that were the same size as the specimen boxes, and to the middle of one of them I cut out a 1-inch square with my 1-inch square punch, or I mean, squares are easy. You can do that with a craft knife and a ruler. And then these little pieces are strips of chipboard. And it's, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'll just lay that down and just fold that up against it. 2 of the pieces are the same length as this square of paper or cardstock. And then the other 2 pieces have to fit in between. So they are just a little shorter. Once this is all glued together, that's when it can be painted just like the 3D printed ones. If you take a piece of chipboard, like a long strip, like I made the sides out of, if you cut a few of these long strips out, then you can cut a bunch of these little sides out at the same time, and then glue everything together at the same time. You can glue one while the previous one is drying, and you could have a little assembly line going. And you can make them as big or small or thick or thin as you'd like. These I made, the sides are just shy of a 1/4 inch tall. A 1/4 inch is 6 millimeters. So these are at like 5 millimeters tall, the sides. But the bottom, this bottom base here, and then this right here that I used to make for the lid, it's a stencil card. So it's real thin like cardstock. It's not thick like chipboard. So it doesn't add but, I don't know, 1/2 millimeter height to the box. And then when everything is put together, it'll be a 1/4 inch or less high even when everything is all glued together and assembled, it'll still be shallow. The only thing about these little boxes, the DIY ones, is that they won't have a slide lid, but that's okay too. These can be glued together and be permanently closed. Doesn't really matter, I guess. Since it is just make-believe prop, doesn't have to be an authentic specimen slide box, does it? All right, and then when that dries, just like the resin boxes, then I can dry brush on the off-white or white, whatever it is. To put the little specimen boxes into the mystery box, I thought about different ways and ended up throwing those ideas out, and I decided just to go simple. I don't want the boxes to jostle around in the box while it's being carried, or, you know. I got one of these strips of my hook and loop Velcro type stuff. You know, stuff. And I thought I would cut a strip off to use. And one thing that's kind of great about this particular Velcro is it is got adhesive on it, so yay. Let's try one out and see if it's going to work. The hook part will go, I think, on the box, and then the loop part will go on the back of the specimen thing. The specimen thing. There we go. I'm sure there are tons and probably much better solutions, but this one will work for me for sure. Now they won't go anywhere. As for where it's going to go in the book, I had originally thought it should go here. However, that would make it difficult to write on these pages with this box here. So I'm going to put it here instead so it can be folded out of the way. That sound like a plan? I think so. I think it sounds like a great plan. And yes, we're just going to use tape. Well, I'm going to use tape. You can use whatever you'd like. And then this way, these little sample boxes can be shifted around as need be. And it fits in there just fine. This is the one that I finished up that was made just out of the cardstock and chipboard. And I think it looks just as great. Some of the other things that I printed out with a 3D printer for books in general, like these book corners. They're just made out of the printed resin, and I'll have to paint them. These I did go ahead and paint. I put just some black spray paint on them. These are Celtic or Viking knots. I don't actually know which one, but they look like either one of those. These will probably get some of the, like the gilder's wax, the metallic wax, whether it's silver or gold or copper, something to that effect. And I'll brush that over the top of the black. I think that'll look kind of cool. And that's probably what I'll do to all of those. And all those files I found on Thingiverse for free. Also made some little book pendants. I painted both of them black with the white pages. This one is solid, but this one, the pages come out and there is a hidden little compartment. I think originally it's supposed to be for like a memory card, like an SD card or something. But, I mean, you could put anything in it, I guess. Again, I found these on Thingiverse. And for both of these, I added the little loop, the bail, so that they could hang from a chain for a pendant or a book charm or something. So they turned out pretty cool. I also built some little charms, and they're like little shadow boxes almost. And inside each one of them, there's like a tuft of moss. And then this one has butterflies and this one has a dove. And then I filled it with some UV resin. It comes in a bottle like this. You can get these at craft stores. This one I got on Amazon. I believe it's on my favorites list. The link is below this video. And I've had this for over a year and it's still half full. There's a ton. And I used just one of the UV lamps that they use for nails to cure this resin. Of course, you have to do it in really tiny little thin layers. We'll do that at some point. I think that would be fun because I have some more I printed with a 3D printer and they're shaped like, I don't know, like almost like little Gothic windows. I painted a couple of them with some gold spray paint. So I thought I'd make little vignettes or something inside of those. And these I built myself with the free software. It's the Microsoft one called 3D Builder. It was on my computer, so I just used it. I also made some typewriter keys, and I built these in the software as well. They come out looking like this, just like a little disc with a rim around the outside edge. And then I printed, with my inkjet printer, I printed numbers and letters on a black background. These got a coat of light silver spray paint on the outside. And then I put the number or letter, whatever you have, down in there. And then I did the same thing that I did with the other. And I used the UV resin and filled it up to make it look like a typewriter key. So I thought those were cool. I don't know exactly what I'm going to be doing with these yet, but I'll figure it out. I also made some wax seals, and this is what it looks like when it comes out of the printer. And this one I spray painted red and then rubbed some gold gilder's wax over that. These I made in 3D Builder too. I want the camera to try to focus on it. So it's a little lock with a lion's face, and it's truly locked up. It works, and you put the key in there and you turn it and it unlocks, and then you just push it back down and it's locked again. So I thought that was adorable. This was also a free file on Thingiverse. I made a keyhole or an escutcheon if you're fancy. It's a little frame. I thought it'd be cool for like a cameo or something. Even on the front of a book, I thought that would look kind of cool. This was also one of the files I found, and it has just a flat back on the rose. And I thought this would look really cool on a book as well, or a box, or, well, really anything. And just to test out the detail, because I was curious how tiny of detail. This is a tiny skull that I printed with the clear resin. Needless to say, it did real well with the detail. This is another model I found, and this was on Thingiverse as well. It's a tiny Wardian case or terrarium. Cool, right? I printed the base and the legs with a solid color of resin, and then of course the top that goes on it I printed with the clear resin, and then I took a Sharpie marker to draw out the iron supports and the top trim, and then I put a little bit of gold on there as well. It might not be so easy to see. The original legs that come on this model, I swapped them out with some legs that I chose, that I built and printed, because the legs that came on this model were real teeny tiny skinny, and they looked like they were going to break. So I put some little heavier duty Queen Anne style legs on there. And then I planted it with some greenery and a little marble statue in there before I put the top on. And this top is glued on, but this is how it looks before it's glued on. The top comes off, and I haven't put any plants or anything inside of this one yet, but the top snaps in there. You don't have to glue it on because it actually fits in there. Kind of a really neat design. Again, that was on Thingiverse and didn't cost anything to download it and print it out. Pretty cool, right? Here's the last thing I will show you. This is also a free model I got off one of the resources. A little tiny KitchenAid mixer. That's like, it's adorable, right? You know what else makes it even more adorable? Yeah, it tilts up. The paddle right here I made out of a paper clip. I'm not going to take it off, but the bowl comes off too. It just unscrews just like the real ones do. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. And of course, when I printed it out, I have gray resin right now. So it was gray, and then I painted it white, and then I added the silver stripe here and the little black knob, and then I spray painted the bowl silver. This looks just like the first KitchenAid mixer I ever had, like way back in the day. Adorable, right? Just stupid cute. So thank you, Elegoo, for letting me try out the Mars 3 Pro. I had a blast, and literally the options, they're endless for what you can print. As you can imagine, I got a little carried away for a while, so I'm gonna have to rein myself back in. But I have plans on what I'm going to do with it for another project that will be coming up that I want to show you guys. So stay tuned for that. But that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the little mystery box and getting it installed into the book. You should definitely try your hand out at making some little miniature boxes for some specimens. For those of you on Patreon, I will upload these little tiny specimen labels in case you wanted to make some boxes of your own and have some tiny little labels for them. So go check that out. But for now, I will let you all go, and I will get to work planning out the next step for the LapBook. I hope everybody is having a great day, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your week. And I will see you all really, really soon in the next video. Bye, guys.